Hey, and welcome to Dr. G Speaks. I am Dr. Kristen Guillory, and I am so very excited to help you experience a life of freedom, faith, and fun you may not even realize is possible. Listen, I know you feel held back, I know you feel stuck, and I know you are hiding. As a coach and the author of Look, Stop Hiding, How to Find Your Voice and Never Dim Your Light Again, you will get to listen to some amazing stories, receive some homework, that's the professor in me, and get some tools to help you live the life you deserve. It's time to quiet the noise and walk in the fullness of who God created you to be. It's time to stop hiding and start thriving. Together, we'll uncover your potential and ignite your journey to a fulfilling life, a life of freedom. Have you ever stopped doing something altogether because you couldn't do it the way you wanted to do it? Have you ever had the time, just not the amount of time you wanted? Have you ever had an opportunity, but because it didn't look the way you envisioned, you walked away from it? Because listen, I think many of us have dealt with this in some way. I know I've been there, struggling with my attachment to a specific version of how I wanted something to happen. Recently, I was leading a group coaching call, and one of my clients shared that she was frustrated because she wasn't able to work on the assignments at the time she wanted. When the program got started, she made a plan to work on this particular set of assignments 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. That was going to be her rhythm. That was how she was going to be able to show up in the way she wanted. And she just mentioned and said, Dr. G, life has happened. There's been a family emergency that is taking my attention and requiring more time of me. And I just don't have the time that I scheduled to work on this. And so I responded and said, thank you so much for sharing. And I know that sucks, doesn't it? She was like, yeah. I said, I know that sucks. I know it sucks when you have planned, this is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And when it doesn't work out in that way, it's difficult. It can be difficult. I said to her, at this point, it looks like based on what you just shared, you're not able to schedule the same amount of time at the same time each day. So what I want to encourage you to do is go day by day and look at your calendar for the next day and schedule. So I said, let's do it right now. And we looked at her calendar for the next day, which was empty. So I said, okay, let's schedule this time to this time. You do this, you do this, you do work with some breaks because you never know what's going to be on the next day. And she appreciated that. And I gave her some other encouragement she received. I appreciated her openness to asking and then openness to receiving. On the same call, another client said, Dr. G, due to some health issues, I'm not able to show up. And I immediately said, in the way you want. You can show up, just not in the way you want. You showed up tonight. You're here, and that's great. You just may not be able to show up in the way you want. And then she said, I schedule time to do this work every day, but I get caught up in my job and other things going on. So by the end of the day, I don't have any time. I said, you don't have the time you want. It sounds like you want to schedule 2 hours a day. You don't have that. And do you have 30 minutes? What I didn't know is she told me about a week later that impacted her so much. She wrote it on a Post-it and put it on her computer. And what it says is, today I will show up in the best way I can today. That's it. You can show up. You can do work, but maybe not in the way you want. You couldn't do it in the way you want. That's different from not being able to do the work at all. And side note, there are probably some times when you want to work, but you literally do not need to because you are sick, because you are exhausted, because mentally you aren't there. We often confuse having limited capacity with no capacity at all, right? I wanted to be able to do this for 4 hours today. I don't have it. I have two, and I'm going to knock out these 2 hours. because 2 hours is better than no hours at all, or spending time being so frustrated at yourself in these situations. Who's been there? Have you ever been there? What we unintentionally do, we turn our preference into requirements. We make our preference of working 2 hours a day or 3 hours a day into a requirement. A preference says, I'd love 2 hours to do this. A requirement says, if I don't have 2 uninterrupted hours, I can't work. I remember having a conversation with someone years ago, and he was working on his dissertation. He was ABD, which is all but dissertation. All of his coursework was completed, and he was into the third year of working on the dissertation. We run into each other. Hey, what's going on? How's it going? And he said, I'm just really not able to do the work because I really need to be able to work on it 4 hours a day. And with my schedule, it doesn't allow. And I remember saying, so why don't you work on it for 90 minutes a day? And he looked at me like I either cured some disease or spoke a language he had no idea what I was saying. But he also looked at me like I hadn't even considered that. I said, yeah, because it's been 3 years and you haven't moved the needle on your dissertation because you're waiting for this 4 hour block that you don't have. But do you have 90 minutes? Do you have an hour? Do you have 2 hours every other day? Because imagine where you'd be right now if you had that time and used it. I've been there myself. I've been there myself with going to the gym. There have been times that if I was going to a 6 p.m. group fitness class, I like to be in class early. I like to get in there a couple minutes early, get my spot, get weights if we're going to use weights. I don't like the feeling of being rushed, and I don't like having to look for a spot. Like, I just want to get in, boom, here's where I am. And there have been a couple times I got to the gym like right at 6, and I took some time to think, do I even want to go in? Because I don't want to go in and be late. I don't want to go in and have to find a place. And I literally thought about not going in because I wasn't able to go in the way I wanted. I remember being in that class, and at 6:45, someone walked in and worked out the final 15 minutes. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, they came into the class at 6:45 and worked out for 15 minutes. And I bet they thought, I'd rather do something than do nothing. There have been times I've been all or nothing in that space where if I don't get to do a good hour, I don't want to do anything, until I started realizing that's not a requirement. That's a preference. A solid 15 minutes can do more than 0 minutes. And I've been there. I've been there where I have wanted to do 6 sets of strength training. And if I couldn't do it, I thought, well, I'm just not going to do anything. Thankfully, now I'm in the place like, you know what? I don't have 6 sets in me, but I have a solid 2. 2 is not 6, but 2 is also not 0. Making it a preference rather than a requirement, it allows flexibility. When you make it a requirement, it's paralysis. It also creates a sense of learned helplessness. Over time, we could start to believe that we have fewer options than we really do. Instead of asking, what can I do? How many times have you asked yourself the question in some variation, why can't I do what I wanted? One question creates movement. The other creates stagnation. This type of thinking also feeds shame. The longer something remains undone, the more shame accumulates. Then people avoid the thing because it reminds them of their perceived failure. Now, they're no longer avoiding the task, they're avoiding the feeling. I've actually been on the other side of that, where a few years ago I was working on a project with a colleague, and there was no momentum, and I was confused. We would have conversations and they would tell me, I'm going to send you an update soon. And I remember one night a thought hit my mind of like, is this colleague experiencing shame? So I talked to them the next day and I said, hey, quick question. Have you experienced shame in any way due to not being able to produce or reach the results you wanted? And he said, yes, absolutely. And my response was, I'm so sorry that you have experienced that. If there's any way I can support, let me know. And we're not looking for perfection in this. We're not looking for perfection in this. We're looking for opportunity. And if something seems pretty good, let's go for it. Fast forward, no opportunity. And what happened was my colleague experienced both. They weren't just avoiding the task, they were avoiding the feeling because in their mind, if they were not able to find this particular opportunity or endeavor that was perfect in their mind, it wasn't worth doing it, and they did not want to disappoint me. So it's multiple things in there instead of, hey, let's see what works. If this doesn't go so well, it's okay. It has to look like this thinking. And I was on the other side of that. And due to that, I did have to part ways with this colleague in terms of the professional relationship because there was no movement at all. This type of thinking, which could be considered all or nothing thinking, it causes unnecessary suffering. There's real pain. Then there's the pain of arguing with reality. Reality says, you have 30 minutes. The mind says, I want 3 hours. The suffering often comes from fighting what is rather than responding to what is. It can also damage our confidence. Confidence is built through evidence. Every small action becomes evidence. I can keep moving is a choice. When people repeatedly choose 0 because they can't do 100, they slowly lose trust in themselves. I am not saying to be gleeful and joyful about moving in a way that you didn't like or is less favorable. Use the and ministry. I wanted to work on this for 2 hours today, and I'm frustrated that I can't. And I have 45 minutes, and I'm going to knock it out. I've been there. I absolutely have been there when I had a podcast, for example, to record. And I wanted a 2-hour block to record 3 episodes. And because that 2 hours became 45 minutes, I just put it to the side. Oh, I'll do it later. I'll do it later. And I thought later is actually now. Let's go. And that's a decision I made literally right now recording this. I have a flight in a couple of hours. I had a couple of hours, and while I am literally sitting in my rental car, I knew this is something that needs to get done. I do have the time, I do have the equipment to do it. Is it the setup that I would normally prefer? No. And can I still produce something great? Yes. It's not my preference, and I could still move in the direction and get something done. So this type of thinking does impact our mental health. This type of thinking is strongly connected to, as I mentioned, all or nothing thinking, perfectionism, anxiety, procrastination, feelings of inadequacy, increased stress, burnout. Research consistently shows that perfectionistic thinking is associated with higher levels of depression, anxiety, and self-criticism because success becomes narrowly defined. Life becomes perfect or failure. There's no room for humanity. There's no room for adaptation, no room for seasons, no room for grace. And y'all, God's sovereignty is in this. One thing I've noticed throughout scripture is that God is rarely as attached to the method as we are. I've often been focused on the how until I started surrendering the how. I've often in the past been focused on the when until I started surrendering the when. So we're focused on the when and the how. God is focused on, will you trust me? Those times where we have believed, I need 2 hours to get this done. I need 4 hours to get this done. Have we excluded the Lord from that? What is it that you desire to get done in the 2 hours or 4 hours? With God, you could get it done perhaps in 1 hour. There's a quote that I appreciate that says, God can do in a matter of moments what might take us years to do. Even the idea of working out. How many times have you considered inviting God into your workout? God, be with me as I work out, because a lot of workout plans and eating plans, if you will, and trust me, I know all about this. It excludes the Lord. I have to count this number of calories. I have to eat this way. I have to walk this many steps. I have to do this kind of strength training, and it has to be this exact formula. As opposed to, God, I know I need to move my body. I know I need to strength train. I know my eating should look like this. And on the days when you literally cannot work out for an hour, sometimes my assumption has been, ugh, a 20-minute workout cannot do what an hour can do because I was moving without the Lord. With the Lord, that 20-minute workout could do more than a 60-minute workout when you were doing it in your own strength. Come on, somebody. Like, y'all. Okay, Lord, I said I was going to do this. I don't have 3 hours. God is like, can you trust me with this one? Can you trust me with the 30 minutes that you do have, that we knock this out? Are you all inviting the Lord into these plans, into these all or nothing plans? We create blueprints. God often creates pathways. Sometimes those pathways curve, sometimes they detour, sometimes they look nothing like the original plan, yet his purposes still stand. Proverbs 19:21 states, many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. Not because our plans are bad, but because his perspective is larger. How many plans have you made just in the last 2 days? Think about that. Think about in the last 2 days. Think of the plans you have made. And there's a chance that some of those plans did not happen exactly the way you wanted. Feel how you feel because they didn't. And are you flowing? Are you still choosing because there is still choice? Are you inviting the Lord in? Y'all, Moses in the Bible wanted to be eloquent. God called him anyway. Like, hold up, I have a stutter. Nope, I can't do this. Moses immediately focused on what he lacked. God focused on what he could do through him. The assignment remained. The path looked different. Aaron became part of the solution. The mission moved forward, not perfectly, but faithfully. How many of you have said that to yourself? Ooh, I'm not ready to do this. I don't have this ready yet. I don't know how to do this yet. Now, there's wisdom in ensuring that you're doing what you need to do and moving in the direction with God's wisdom. And how many of you have waited to do a photo shoot? I have. Oh, I wanted to lose 20 more pounds. I can't do it yet. Why not? Do the photo shoot. And if you want, do another one. I've been there. Okay, I wanted this specific thing to look just like this. And now, y'all, Flo is one of my middle names. I still have what I want. There are certain things I still want, and I'm growing through that. Okay, I'm human, and I flow. When flights are delayed, when technology issues happen, sure, I may be frustrated, and life happens. There are times I've scheduled things and did not know when I scheduled it that I would be tired by the time the scheduled thing came. So I could either push through or honor where I was in the moment and reschedule. There are times I felt really bad because things didn't work out in my way and I thought I was going to look a certain way. A prime example, a clear example. And looking back, I'm like, girl, sit down. 10 years ago or 11 years ago, I was in Houston. No, I wasn't. 11 years ago, let me back that up. An example that shows this really, really well. 11 years ago, I was scheduled to go to my previous university for a meeting with the vice president to discuss me being a consultant. And I was getting ready to go when I got a call that my dad was in the hospital. My dad lives in Houston. The location of this meeting is probably 4 or 5 hours away from Houston. So I go to Houston to be with my dad, and it was pretty serious. I actually thought about trying to drive to the university for this meeting and then driving back the next day. That was ridiculous. In my mind at that time, I did not allow meeting reschedules to be an option because I show up, I'm able to get there. So I started telling myself a narrative that, oh my gosh, they're going to think that you don't take this seriously. They're going to think these negative things about you because you scheduled to be there and you can't. So I emailed them, hey, everybody, this is what's going on with my dad. Can we please reschedule? Thank you. They emailed back immediately. When I say they, the admin and the vice president, we're so sorry to hear. We're praying for you. Take your time. Yes, yes, yes. Let's meet whenever you're ready. But in my mind, rescheduling was not an option because I had to be at this meeting. I'm so glad that I am different and not the same. And that is where I once was. Y'all, this type of thinking of this is how I want to do it. And if I can't do it this way, I'm not going to do it. It shows up in our everyday life, in our health. I can't do my full workout, so I'm not going to do anything. Instead, I can walk 15 minutes. Business. I don't have all day to work on my proposal. Instead, I have 30 focused minutes. Relationships. I can't have a 2-hour conversation. Instead, I can send a thoughtful text and schedule a time to talk. Spiritual life. I missed my quiet time. I missed church. I missed my hour of prayer. Instead, I can spend 10 intentional minutes with God. Finances. I can't save $500 a month. I can't do that. Instead, I can save 25. Small acts are often God's favorite building material because those steps require trust and recognizing there's choice. There's choice in most situations. A few reflection questions. Where in your life have you confused a preference with a requirement? Where are you postponing because you cannot do it in the way you originally imagined? What options are you overlooking because you are focused on what is unavailable? What is possible right now? Are you grieving a closed path or ignoring an open one? Y'all have homework today. And the final question, what would faithfulness look like in this season rather than ideal circumstances? Trusting the Lord doesn't mean that you don't get to feel disappointed, frustrated. Have your preference, absolutely. And trust God when things are not working out in the rhythm and flow that you prefer. Listen, don't let your attachment to the preferred path cause you to abandon the purpose. A different way is not the same thing as no way. Progress rarely asks for perfection. It asks for participation. Come on. Are you going to participate? It may not be the way you had hoped, but are you going to show up and participate or continue to be on that sideline? And I'll be saying this, sometimes on the sideline is the best place to be because you can observe. That's still participation. Well, what are you choosing to do? How much of your life have you labeled impossible when it was actually just inconvenient, unfamiliar, disappointing, or different than expected? Because those are not the same thing. And sometimes the difference between a fulfilled calling and a stalled dream is simply the willingness to say, this isn't the way I wanted to do it, but it is still a way. Your affirmation for today. I release my attachment to how things should happen and remain open to what is still possible. I honor progress, trust God's timing, and move forward with what I have. And y'all, as I'm reading this affirmation out loud, it's speaking directly to me. It's speaking directly to me because there are still some things in my life that I would prefer like really strongly, and I am desiring to trust God's timing and move forward with what I have. Thank you so much for listening to the Dr. G Speaks podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and family. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Deuces.